I have always been here.
What an excellent day for an exorcism. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to night 2 of Wicked Wednesdays. And tonight we are covering a true horror masterpiece, the 1973 classic, The Exorcist. With me this evening, I have got Mr. CCDV, Mr. Lundell's Groovy Movies, and we should have one more panelist joining us, but we aren't going to. I didn't want to keep everybody waiting too terribly long. This gentleman is quite literally one of the by common consensus, truly one of the scariest movies ever made.
Oh, absolutely.
And tonight we're going to do a deep dive. We're going to talk about the parts we love. We're going to talk about the parts that scare the crap out of us, and we're just going to break this. We're going to break this masterpiece down. And gentlemen, I am so glad to have both of you with me tonight. So, that all being said, fellas, why don't you do a quick intro, and then we will get started.
Good evening, everybody. I am Mr. CCDV. I usually do spiritual studies and pain streams, but I enjoy this stuff. I could be that guy, the guy who ties the woman to the railroad tracks. I could do that anytime because I got the mustache and I got the voice. But
yes. Yes, he does. He really does. He really, really does.
Only thing missing is the stovepipe hat and the cape.
I will do that eventually, yes.
Hello, everybody. Mr. Lundell from Mr. Lundell's Groovy Movies. And like the screen name says, that's what my channel is all about. B-movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, even we can go back 30s and 40s with westerns and film noir, some silent movies. I found out my crowd likes some silent movies, so you can get some of those every now and then. But it's October, and this is the month of horror, okay? Cheesy horror movies. That's what you're going to see this month, especially Friday nights, Saturday, and Sundays. Mr. CC, we're going to have to get together. We're going to have to do some riffs. Hopefully, I can keep the YouTube gods appeased this time around.
Do it through the LDG theater, and it won't be a problem.
I'm thinking that's what I may have to do. So,
but I would love to do some riffs with you again, Mr. Lundell.
Oh yeah,
that was so much fun.
Oh yeah,
doing that.
The very first one, we talked about it last week. So that'll be the first riff.
Well, that all being said, fellas, let's jump in. Where would you like to begin with this puppy? I mean,
most people begin at the beginning.
Ha ha ha! You're very funny.
Yes.
Okay. Tubular Bells. Let's start there.
Tubular Bells.
Yeah.
I don't think I get that reference.
It's the theme song.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right.
What's his name? Mike Oldsmith.
Mm-hmm.
It's the song. That song is almost as classic as the movie.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I would
and
agree.
then of course you got the pea soup vomit, of course, but we'll
Oh,
get
yeah.
to that.
The green stuff.
I will say this for a movie that was made in 1973, the effects for this, they got very creative and they did a
Yeah.
great job. And honestly, I have seen both the regular version and the director's extended cut, which is why I watched last night in preparation for this. And I can't believe I don't have a copy of the director's cut and everything. I'm gonna have to change that.
Yeah, me too.
I have not watched the director's extended cut. Oh, the regular movie drives me crazy as it is.
Hmm.
This will The thing about this movie, I know I began to think watching it last night. They kind of added, I'm saying they kind of went back to some of the gothic horror
Yes.
in some aspects. Not necessarily spiders and cobwebs and snakes and whatever in a dungeon, but little bitty things that just kind of build the tension real slowly.
Oh, it was
And
super
then,
suspenseful. It is still one of the best
yeah,
suspense movies ever.
Yes, I would wholeheartedly agree. And very quickly to the chat, Superior Hero Reviews, our fourth panelist. Unfortunately, his internet is acting up. But you get in here whenever you're able to. And if you can't, completely understand. Those things happen. It stinks. So,
tell me.
but glad to have you in the chat nonetheless. So.
The opening scene in northern Iraq was an eye-opener for me because I hadn't seen this since I've deployed to Iraq multiple times, and just seeing those scenes, I was like, oh yeah, that is. I don't know if they did it on location. I assume they did it on location.
I would assume so because this is it was like 1972 or so that this was filmed. So I think we still had semi decent relations with the Iraqi government. So they were probably able to film in that area. So
right, and if you're familiar with the cultures up there, they're in northern Iraq, which is what people like me consider Kurdistan.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're in the Kurdish area. Although the chai tea that was served to Max von Sydow, I was like, oh God, chai tea, not again.
Indeed.
I hate chai tea.
Well, the thing that I noticed or anything rewatching this last night, it's something I didn't necessarily pick up on. This movie is very much a slow burn.
Yeah.
Because
it is.
Because the confrontation doesn't really start until like the last 20 or
30 minutes,
of the movie. The rest of it is just build up. And it's just
build up and it's suspense. That's the best part of this movie.
Yeah.
An hour and a half of suspense and then a half hour of horror. It's awesome.
I agree. Well, and the other interesting thing is, and I think this was done deliberately by the director and probably by I'm pretty sure the author of the book or anything, William Peter Benchley and or Batley, excuse me, and Billy, or as he's called by everybody that knew him, Billy Friedkin. I think what they were trying to do was show just how broken humanity was, because if you notice, the one scene where Father Barron's sitting in the cafe and right across the street or so is that blacksmith, and you have that one guy that works in the blacksmith that has a marled eye, and just throughout the course of before we get to the possession of Reagan, they're showing humanity and its brokenness, but yet it's not lost. Humanity is not lost. It's not outside of God's grace or God's protection per se. And the interesting thing was the author remarked that Friedkin was actually an agnostic. He was not a person particularly of faith. And I think he did a very good job at tackling this film and everything and trying to show humanity in all its various forms, in a manner of speaking. And guys, what are your thoughts on any of that?
True agnostic or atheistic agnostic?
He didn't specify, so I'm not 100% for sure.
Okay, because I did a stream on that a month ago, I think.
Yeah,
you were on it. But or were you not on that one?
I don't remember.
Agnostic versus atheist.
I might have been. I don't remember. I've slept since then.
Yeah, me too.
We've all slept since then.
My brother thought he was an atheist, and I actually explained to him the difference between atheism and agnosticism. But this movie itself is a spiritual movie, and it is absolutely incredible how the director, the writer, actually did it. Because you're going through the medical procedures, which all of us have to go through if we have an unknown disease. But they're going through all the medical procedures, and at one point in the movie, the doctor stops and says, you may want to get an exorcist.
Yeah. Well, and
not because I believe that there are exorcists that actually exist, but because the person who is exhibiting these symptoms, who has no other medical problems, also believes that there is a spiritual component. So, go and get a spiritual component.
Yeah. Well, and it amazes me as a person of faith, looking at this film, the lengths that she goes to through the medical field, and then eventually the medical field's like, we don't know what the heck to tell you. Go get a psychiatrist. And even a psychiatrist, I think, would be lost in anything dealing with something like this, because
he was lost when she grabbed her.
He almost lost.
When she grabbed his crotch and he landed on the floor. That was
exactly. Yeah. I imagine every guy that sat in the theater and everything when that movie originally came out went, painful, very, very painful. I know. When this was a few years ago, I had never seen Exorcist on the big screen, and they were releasing the director's cut. And I talked with my mother and everything. I was like, "Would you want to go see this?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's go check it out." And I'm like, I asked her, I was like, "Did you and Dad ever see this on the big screen?" She's like, "Well, me and your dad weren't dating at the time." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right, duh." But she's like, "No, she's like, I never saw it or anything." So walked out, and we both were. I was like very, very quiet and everything. We went to have dinner afterwards, and she's like, "You're being awful quiet." She's like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Because you're usually a mile a minute after a movie." I was like, "It's just heavy." She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "It is."
Don't know how to process this one.
Yeah,
but don't know how to process this one.
Because I was like 11 years old when this movie came out, and I remember my uncle. I've got two uncles that we are basically contemporaries age-wise. They're just a few years older than I am, but they were old enough to go see it, and I wasn't. It was like, if you see this movie, you will be good for the rest of your life. and
Yeah.
That I thought about that watching the director's cut last night. Yeah, Frank told me.
You will never play with a Ouija board if you watch this movie.
Hell no. No.
Stay away from Captain Howdy.
Stay away from Captain Howdy, absolutely.
You take that Ouija board, you douse it in holy water, and then you drop it in a river.
No,
I'd burn it.
Anyway, but the one of the amazing things for me for this movie is the fact that there is a sense of realism, even though we want to believe this sort of thing can never happen, even though there are documented cases of it happening. And to see it happen to such a young girl, a girl who's like 12 or 13 years old. I think Linda Blair was like 12 years old when they filmed this.
Yeah.
And to watch her performance, I don't remember if she even got nominated for an Oscar for this or not. But I would be truly amazed if she hadn't been, because she did such a monumental job. You were going to say
she was amazing in this movie, and in Repossessed when she did the parody of this movie.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
That was hilarious. So she spoofed herself. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
Go ahead, Cece. It's okay.
But her performance in this movie was amazing, and a 12-year-old saying those words that she said when she was possessed, it was like, oh my God. Are children allowed to say this now?
I don't think that was her. I think that was I think that was done in a recording room or something.
Well, she had to mouth the words at least.
Well, actually, when I was watching the documentary on this afternoon, she did say all that dialogue.
Oh, she did. Ooh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she said all that dialogue. But here's the interesting thing: they did all sorts of sound treatments and everything with it, and it didn't come out right and everything. So they got another person. That's
why you got the dual voices.
Yeah, and real quick to the chat, Pixelated LCD, good to see you, bud. Glad you're here again. I can't remember the name of the person who did the voice. It was McCambridge, something McCambridge. I know the last name was McCambridge, but I can't remember the first name off the top of my head. But they had another person do the voice, and then they dubbed it in.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely terrifying voice or anything. But
Mercedes McCambridge.
I thought it was Mercedes. I couldn't remember for the life of me. Thank you, Cece. Appreciate it. Yeah. It still amazes me to this day. For a 1972-73 movie, the stuff that they were able to pull off without a drop of computer-generated graphics whatsoever or effects. None.
Oh, it was amazing.
And it's still, in 2020, it holds up. Even the director's cut that I think was released in the early 2000s or somewhere along in there, it still holds up.
I mean, the pneumatics and the hydraulics underneath the bed.
Yeah.
Oh, it scares the crap out of me to this day.
Well, not only that, but the prosthetics and the dummy, but for the head spin. It's still. I mean, and the makeup not just for Reagan, but even though it was just to age him further for Max von Sydow, to age Father Karras or Father Marin,
Oh,
excuse me,
Yeah.
it still holds up. And that's one of the really great things about this movie is the fact that it's all the effects. I mean, even if the effects didn't hold up, the story would still be compelling. And you know, something that I really enjoyed about this movie was the fact that we get time. They do focus on Reagan and her mother and everything, but you also get time with Father Karras, and even in the director's cut, you get more time with Father Karras and everything. They're able to act when the director's cut. They put in more scenes, particularly after the death of his mother, and you know,
They focus a lot on Father Karras.
Yeah,
which is absolutely important for the story itself.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly agree. And the guy who played him, I can't remember the name of the actor off the top of my head, but he did such a great job as Father Karras. He truly did. And
Jason Miller. Jason Miller is his name.
Okay. Thank you, Cece. Appreciate that. Yeah, this is Reagan's story, but this is also Damien Karras' story. Because he's having to come with he's talking with his one friend who's a fellow priest, and they're saying they're in a bar, and he's like, I don't think I'm cut out for this anymore. I'm unfit. I need to be reassigned or something.
And that's Father Dyer.
No, that wasn't Father Dyer. That was another father, because Father Dyer is the one that gives him his last rites at the end. I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember the name of the other priest that he talks to there in the bar and everything. The one that talks with I think it's the cardinal or whatever, when they're finally deciding to do the exorcism. Mm-hmm. But you know, I can very much relate to Damien and everything, because I'm not in the same predicament that he is and everything, but I do have an older mother and everything. I do worry about her. I do care about her, obviously. So I can understand his struggle and everything, and I can relate to that very much. And that was something that really made Damien relatable. And I thought that was a great strength of the movie.
Mm-hmm. I'm scrolling through the list of people on IMDb. Turns out the demon's name is Pazuzu.
Pazuzu? Yeah.
Pazuzu. I never knew that before.
Well, it's not brought up until the second movie, but we won't go there because the second movie is kind of silly, to just put it mildly.
Fair enough. I never watched the second movie. After the first one, I was like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Put it this way, for part 2, Richard Burton should have been shot. Okay. So, I expect better work out of him, a guy like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, honestly. I would. I mean, even we can acknowledge that movies back in like the 1970s and some in the 1980s were bad.
That is true.
And unfortunately, The Exorcist and Jaws have a similar trajectory. The first movie, stellar, outstanding, one of considered a masterpiece. The sequels,
yeah, the sequels not so much.
Oh man.
What happens when you show the shark? Well, you jump the shark. That's what happens when you show the shark.
Yeah, but they had to eventually show the shark in the original Jaws, and that was okay. But they had an interesting premise with Jaws, and you can only go to the well so many times with possession stories. And I know we've gotten some, I think, halfway decent possession movies and everything in the last couple of years. I think one that I saw was The Possession of Emily Rose, which was particularly good.
I haven't watched any of them.
I don't. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, the first time I came into contact with a true possession, and I chickened out and didn't cast out the demon. After that, I just don't watch possession movies.
And that's
So
it's a very, this is not a necessarily easy movie to tackle and everything, because it does deal with uncomfortable subject matter for the simple fact that, as I said a few minutes ago, realizing that this sort of thing can happen, even as technologically and medically and psychologically advanced as we are, the supernatural is still something that frightens us.
yeah, it is.
Very, very much frightens us, even even in 2020. And I think that's why it still stands and everything, why people say this is the scariest movie ever made. I mean, it's scarier than the first Alien. It's scarier than all the classic black and white horror movies, although nowadays they're kind of seen as a little cheesy, a little campy, but
They are cheesy, campy, and goofy. Yes,
but they still have a charm to them, and that's a good thing. And that's why we go back to them at every Halloween and Friday the 13th and all that other stuff. But getting back into the movie itself, something that I really dug was the fact that you felt the pain of everybody in that film.
Oh, yes.
From Reagan, her mother, Father Karras, Father Marin, even the detective and everything. For heaven's sakes, I can't remember the name of the detective off the top of my head, but the scenes that the actor
Lieutenant William
Kinderman.
Kinderman.
It was
played by Lee Cobb.
Lee Cobb. Yeah, he did such a great job. But you really felt the emotional and psychological pain that all these characters were going through. Anything along those lines that you guys want to comment on or dig into?
Oh, that is absolutely brilliant, especially with Father Marin, because he found the statue in Iraq. He found the medallion in Iraq, and the medallion actually plays a big part in the final scenes of the movie. But the emotional aspects of what happens during a possession, and remember, this film took place over months.
Yes.
It was not just a few days, right? I mean, she played the Ouija board. She got in contact with Captain
Howdy.
She got in contact with Captain Howdy, and it was a slow progression. Although the film doesn't show how slow the progression was, it really was. It took place over several months. And when she started showing symptoms, she started going to the doctor for that MRI. Oh, holy crap. I would not have wanted to go through an MRI like that. But she did. Yeah, she did. And so you're talking about at least a year that she was possessed before she finally started showing the physical symptoms of being possessed.
Yeah.
So it's God, that's such a scary movie. Knowing what I know about spiritual and life events and things like that. I know the difference between psychological and spiritual. It's unfortunate that I had to learn it the hard way, but I did finally learn it. So just the scariest movie I've ever seen, because they are so capable of doing the spiritual versus psychological damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting side note.
Yes.
I wonder that does anybody know that this movie was supposedly based on an actual case
Yes.
from like the 50s, I think. It was a young boy that
Yeah.
was possessed,
Hmm.
and how the author got a hold to this story, I don't know.
I think I think Blatley I think he was living in Georgetown or something like that at the time when he started writing this, because Blatley was an author, but he wrote mostly comedic pieces instead of heavier, serious stuff. And he had heard of the story, and I think he went to a local priest or something. And
Oh,
I'd have the link to the documentary is in the chat and everything. If anybody wants to check it out later after we're done.
yeah, I'm gonna
But
check that out probably
yeah,
tomorrow
if
night.
cool. The interesting thing about this is when the author wrote this, he tried to write it in such a way that it really sunk its hooks into you, and it really worked on you. It worked on your nerves. It worked on your anxiety. It worked on, because you're sitting there waiting. Okay, when's it going to start happening? When's it going to kick in? When's it going to kick in?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to hear all that scratching and rattling and all that sound up in the attic. You're like, oh crap, here we go.
That's not rats, man. That's not rats.
It's the devil.
Yeah, but the really scary part that got me was when Max von Sydow walked in the house.
Yeah.
And you heard the groan from upstairs.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
okay, I've got a little 5.1 surround system here. And so, they look up and to right, and that's where the speaker is, the surround speaker that ground in my living room came out of. And we were all looking up at that point, just instinctively. I looked up there because that's where I heard the noise come from. And I was like, okay, good. Whoever redid the sound, I got to give them kudos just for that one little moment, because the blood kind of ran cold.
Oh yeah.
Once I realized, that.
Oh yeah.
And when the priest was there at the foot of the bed and he had froze in the middle of the ceremony.
Right. Father Dyer, the response. Father Dyer, the response.
It's not Father Dyer. It's Father Karras.
Father Karras, yeah. Father Karras, the response, please. Father Karras, the response, please.
Even I was, man, say what you're supposed to say. Get just going. It really built the tent up to that point. The tension had built up so much, and like I said earlier, there were elements of Gothic horror reintroduced.
Yes.
Because by then, by the time this movie came out, there was essentially no Gothic horror movies made anymore. They were all the gore movies going into slasher.
A lot of slasher picks. Yeah.
Yes, very true. Well, and not to mention, this is something that a priest said to the director. And I mentioned this and everything before we got started. There's a little known thing within the Catholic Church known as intervention. And anytime you try to bring attention to the existence of the devil, he's going to do everything in his power to stop you. And this particular production was not fraught without its issues. In one particular case, the set caught on fire. They still couldn't, and even to this day, they can't figure out how the hell the set got caught on fire. But they almost lost the set. 9 people, either directly or indirectly to the production, passed, as in, well, they died.
Oh man. Huh.
Yeah. And I won't go into the whole list here and everything. They explain it all in the documentary. And both Ellen Burstyn and Linda Blair got hurt during the shooting. One of the scenes where Reagan is flying up and down off the bed and everything, part of the harness and everything had come undone, and she was actually getting seriously hurt. And when you hear her saying, "Stop it! Please make it stop! It's hurting! It's hurting!" That was she actually got hurt and everything. Now, thankfully, she recovered and she didn't have any permanent injury and everything due to it. But the other interesting thing was Ellen Burstyn and everything. In that one scene where Reagan slaps her, well, when she's possessed, and she goes flying across the room and gets bumped, knocked to the floor and near that window, her back got hurt. Now, thankfully, she went to her chiropractor and said, give it a few days and you should be fine. And they did a second take, and she told the director, she's like, "Please don't yank me down as hard as you did before. It hurt." And apparently he gave a wink and a nod and everything when she wasn't looking to the guy who did that particular effect and everything and did the yanking. And he did anyway, and that's when she got hurt.
Oh.
But here's another crazy thing that I learned. When they were making the room super cold and all, it actually got so cold that moisture got snuck into the room, and when they came back the next morning, there was a thin layer of snow in the bedroom, the set.
Holy cow!
I know.
They should have filmed that. That should have been part of the movie.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah,
that would have been like, and we've talked a little bit about the prosthetics makeup in the director's cut, and I don't think this exists in the regular theatrical cut. There's actually a part and everything where Father Karras comes back to the house because the one young girl and everything who's the assistant to Ellen Burstyn's character and everything, Mrs. McNeil. He's like, I don't want. I think the name of the mother was Chris, wasn't it? As in Christine. Possibly. I could be. That sounds right, but I could be wrong. But they go up to the bedroom.
Yeah, Chris McNeil. Yeah.
Chris McNeil. Okay. And she opens up Reagan's pajama top. I had her stomach, and it shows very slowly the words "Help me" pop up on her skin.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that right there, that was a great piece of prosthetic makeup work right there. I mean, I can't remember the name of the guy who did the effects for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But he did a phenomenal job, as we've already kind of talked about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I could think of several different ways of doing that, but the fact that it showed up on film so brilliantly,
Yes.
It was just absolutely wonderful the way this film was shot. So I will go with excellent cinematographer. Oof, that's a lot of syllables.
Very true. Yes. Well, guys, I feel like I've kind of monopolized the conversation. I didn't mean to, but what's something about the film that you want to delve into?
Probably for me, it was the process. I mean, Catholicism, that's blind faith, but something so dramatic as an exorcism, they cover all the bases before they perform that ritual. They make sure beyond a reasonable doubt that they are dealing with something otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I found out years later that's actually the process. So what you saw in kind of in the movie, they exhausted all of the scientific stuff before they considered an exorcism.
Yeah, and when Father Karras went to the Archbishop, right? He had all of the evidence he needed. And so the Archbishop was like, okay, we definitely have an exorcism here. Who are we going to get to do it? Father Maris? Okay. Are you sure you can still do it?
Marin.
Sorry, Marin. Good God.
You need to have some cue cards in front of you, something, bud.
It's a movie, for crying out loud. Yes, Father Marin. Okay. But yeah, and as soon as Father Marin walked into that house, and I talked to you about this before the show, but he had the gift of discernment. He knew it was a demon as soon as he stepped into the house. Mm-hmm. Probably before he stepped into the house, but I mean, he stepped into the house. He said, "It is one demon, and it is lying to you constantly."
Yep,
that is what he said. So do not interact with that demon. It was
he already had.
Oh yeah, he already had, obviously, because he thought it was a psychological disorder. I mean, the Jesuit priesthood had sent him to college to become a psychologist. So yeah, he thought it was just another mental disorder.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out to be something he was not expecting.
Yeah.
And real quick to the chat, AFK Bard, good evening, my friend. Good to see you. And yes, now I will give you fair warning, AFK. If you watch either the regular version or the director's cut, be prepared.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
Anyway, that being said, guys, go ahead, continue.
Okay.
Well, we can. I'll give my thoughts and then we can move on. Yeah, the thing is, for the Catholic Church, they realized that not all cases of possession was necessarily real, true, genuine possession.
Yeah.
And they once they discovered all sorts of psychological disorders, they finally were like, okay, maybe we need to start changing our tact and really giving our priests the tools that they need to discern between demonic possession and people that have some sort of psychological disorder, like schizophrenia or something along those lines.
Right.
And when they finally realize, yeah, this is the real thing, who the heck are we going to get? Oh, yeah, let's bring in this old guy that's been rummaging around in northern Iraq and unfortunately is having to take nitroglycerin pills for his heart.
Mm.
Not the best move. But,
well, I don't know if you remember the story from Acts. A group of priests tried to drive out a demon, and the demon kicked their ass. And then a couple of Christians went up and was like, "Go away." And the demon had to leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you've got that dichotomy of we've got a ritual and we have to follow the ritual versus true faith. And I do believe that Father Marin had true faith. Just that the possession was, and it had been months, right? It had already been months that this demon was possessing the body, and so it was a much more difficult exorcism than anyone had expected. Oof. I don't know. It's fictional tale, of course, but really a great movie.
Well, all fiction is based on some sort of truth.
Yep.
And obviously, we kind of discussed already, there was an actual case of possession that the author used as inspiration for his particular story. And the fact that we do have in Christian tradition the fact that there has been demonic possession in the past. I mean, there's one right smack dab. Well, there's one right smack dab in Scripture where Christ drives out the legion of demons possessing the one man and sends them into a herd of pigs.
Yeah, into a herd of pigs, right.
And that right there tells you even the good Lord and the people who serve him believe that this sort of thing does happen, because even God knows of the existence of Satan. And even Jesus Christ encountered Satan on one occasion at least. And because he was God manifest, he was able to just drive them out. It wasn't a chore, it wasn't a challenge, it wasn't anything. He just did it. He compelled them to leave the man that had been possessed.
Into a herd of pigs that eventually drowned. Yeah.
Exactly. And the fact that it took two priests, it took their lives to save one young woman's life. That right there was, I think, a testament to both men's faith. I mean, the fact that the charis and everything, after the ritual didn't seem to work, he just literally tackled Reagan to the floor and said, "Come into me, take me, blast you, take me." Granted, he didn't say blast you, but the demon went into him. And
remember, prior to that, he was having a crisis of faith at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was not a full-on faithful believer, right?
Yeah.
But that was because of his mother and other situations that he was dealing with.
Well, and that's something that we often don't really discuss, is the stress that priests and pastors and the people that serve in the church are under. And imagine what it's like for the Catholic priests especially, because they have to deal with listening to people's confession.
Oh, yeah.
And that right there is a heavy, heavy thing to have to deal with. I can only imagine. I can't speak from firsthand experience, obviously. But, it's not an easy thing to try and go into a situation like this when you're having your own struggles. I mean, obviously his mother had just passed. She had not been in good health. He was feeling guilty because of what happened. He had that one horrific dream shortly after she died and everything, where she's staying at the subway entrance and she's right across the street. And you almost get the feeling that was kind of an analogy for her soul going to hell or something along those lines.
Right.
And maybe, in fact, that was the case, because you do see the flash of that ghastly white face with the sharpened teeth.
Oh, yeah, when they're doing the actual exorcism and the lights are flashing and you see that face. Oh, scary.
Okay.
Scary.
Okay, so now that kind of makes sense. I was just wondering how that little flash fit into everything. And then you're right, I forgot about that. His mother walking down the subway.
Yeah, in his dream.
Yeah, the nightmare he had, that face actually flashed on the screen for a second during that nightmare. Yeah, and that face showed up again when they were doing the exorcism. So,
and the face even showed up a few times. Other than that, I think there was one time in particular when Reagan's mother was coming home and she was sitting in the kitchen when the phone was ringing, the lights were flashing, and the lights flashed off and everything, and you could see her just illuminated by a light. And I think it was on the stove hood. You saw that face slowly fade in and then fade away.
oh my goodness, I did not see that. Okay,
Oh, so then
I think
that was the demon then.
Mm-hmm.
right.
That was the demon messing around with the house.
Yeah.
Well, and there are only a few stories that are like this that are what you would call a slow burn. And this movie and I would say both the book and the actual the Francis Ford Coppola version of Dracula really give that sense of a slow burn. Like it doesn't throw everything at you all at once. You don't get the big bad going boogity 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 boogie at the very beginning.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I love this movie so much is because it is a slow burn. It builds the tension, it builds the anxiety, it builds and builds and builds until it's like you've got a weight on you that's just like so intense. You're like, when is this going to be released?
Yeah.
When can I start to feel good again? It isn't until the very end.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it isn't until the very, very end.
Yeah.
When
the cop and the priest walk down the street, going to lunch.
Yeah. Well, and even that and everything, it's after the ordeal's over and they're packing up the house and the McNeils are getting ready to leave. And you see Reagan coming out, and she still looks a little worse for wear. You can still see the sores healing on her face. But then you have that moment where she looks at the priest's collar, Father Dyer's collar, and she jumps up and gives him a kiss on the cheek because I think somewhere deep inside her, she remembers seeing that collar. And she realizes
that's what saved your life. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and something that was inconsistent and everything with the sequel and everything, the second movie, when Father Dyer and Mrs. McNeil are talking, and she's like, she doesn't remember any of it, and she's like, it's better that way. And then, of course, they contradict themselves, and she does remember. Although I think maybe the reason she remembers is because they were doing those hypnosis sessions with her, and she remembered that way. But still, I think it was better that she didn't remember, because something that horrific, you don't want to remember.
I think we can all agree that the second movie doesn't exist.
Yes. I can wholeheartedly agree with that one. Believe me, yes.
Oh no! I mean, there are some Italian B-grade possession movies that are much better than The Exorcist 2.
You start talking about B-grade movies, yeah.
Indeed.
So.
Indeed. Well, and the thing for me, and I don't know if you guys will necessarily agree with this. You might not. Is the fact that how do I want to word this? Although we kind of are repulsed by these types of movies that build so much anxiety and so much tension, sometimes we gravitate towards them because even though they make us feel uneasy, there's something captivating about a story like this. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that more of the horror movie genre should go back to the tension building phase rather than the just blood and gore slasher stuff that we've been getting for the last 30 years.
Yeah, I agree. But in order for that to happen, you first got to get some writers. Okay.
Indeed.
I mean, let's just face it. There's nobody out there putting out prose like Edgar Allan Poe did almost 200 years ago.
Right.
Don't remind me.
I mean, that we look at now and say, this is so Halloweenish, you know.
Mm.
Well, even more contemporary, you could go with
Stephen King.
The fat guy.
The fat guy.
Oh,
You're talking about oh man.
The Birds or
Alfred Hitchcock.
Alfred Hitchcock, yes.
Well, see, he's a director.
Well, I know he didn't actually
right.
write the scripts, but he knew how to build tension.
Yeah,
Yes.
he did.
You know, the closest one we had in the last few years that seemed to be on that trajectory of being one that could build tension and build unease. And if you guys disagree with me, that's fine. But I would say at least his first 2 or 3 movies he really did well was M. Night Shyamalan. He really had a good sense of how to build tension and how to build unease and anxiety in a movie. I mean, if you look at Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, and I know some people don't like this movie, but personally, I do. Signs
is a good example of it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Signs is a good example.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, M. Night Shyamalan had at that point revealed himself as a twist director. So there's a twist at the end, and you always know that, and you're expecting it. So unfortunately, not as good. But yeah. Definitely The Sixth Sense was his best movie, I think.
Well, I think he's done some good stuff since then. I mean, obviously he's done Unbreakable, he did Split, he's done Glass, which I've heard a lot of people have enjoyed. I'm actually going to sit down and watch all 3 of those again because I want to see Split because I heard so many good things. I heard Glass was particularly good, and I want to hear that. I want to see what was done with that one. But yeah, that was the cool thing about Shyamalan, and I get what CC. I get what you're saying with him being known as the twist director, but that doesn't necessarily bother me per se because I don't mind a good twist as long as the story and the setup are captivating. And more often than not, with Shyamalan, he did a good job of making the twist interesting. Now, the only twist I did not particularly care for was the one in the village. That movie right there, that for me was one of his lame duck films. At least I thought it was. I didn't particularly care for the village. I didn't particularly care for the twist, even though it had a great cast. I mean, honestly, it had a great cast. It's just unfortunate that the writing and the direction wasn't better.
Turns out we're not in the 18th century.
Yeah, they're all living in a big old park.
Spoilers.
To a degree, I think you can add Tim Burton to that list.
I would agree with that to a point. Yeah.
Okay, I'm basically thinking about Sleepy Hollow now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was actually pretty good.
That was
I love Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, I love what he did with that, and but there's a quirkiness to Burton's directing style.
Yes,
it's like primary colors, and just weird little guy over here that everybody is drawn to.
Yes.
It's it's that kind of thing. So he can, given the right vehicle and Johnny Depp, he can do that slow burner. Like this.
Now, considering the Hollywood concept of new movies, do you think that if they did remake The Exorcist now, would Tim Burton be a good choice for director for that movie?
Okay, first off, leave it alone.
Yeah, that's what I say too.
I'm going to agree. This movie does not need to be remade.
It does not. Okay, and the woke mindset nowadays. Okay, there would be about 21 priests dead, and then some Wiccan chick will come in and chase the demon out. Okay.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
That's what they would do.
And it would be horrible, and nobody would like it.
It would be a bad movie, So no, leave this movie alone, please, Hollywood. Leave this. Just re-release it every now and then and make a few dollars off of it.
Yes,
there you go.
Okay.
That I agree with. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. But please don't release any of the sequels or the prequel. I cannot believe they actually did a prequel to this, although the prequel wasn't completely bad. I'm like, Stellan Skarsgård as a young Father Merrin. I mean, he's a good actor. Don't get me wrong. I like Stellan Skarsgård. I do. I like him. He's a good actor.
He's almost as old as Fun Sydow when he did this movie.
No, Max everything was in his, I think, 60s or 70s when he did The Exorcist. Stellan Skarsgård wasn't that old when they did the prequel and everything.
Oh, okay.
When he did
that old. I mean,
he might now, yeah, and everything. If you look at if you put them side by side at the same ages, they probably do look that old. But yeah, honestly, possession movies are a very tricky creature to get right.
Yeah,
because
because
you can either have The Exorcist, or you can have Paranormal Activity. Ugh. I remember going to see that with my ex-wife, and we walked out. I was like, was that supposed to be scary? I'm like, it was basically watching people sleep in bed. If I want to do that, I'll videotape myself.
Yeah.
And then watch the replay.
I stopped watching horror movies after the Blair Witch Project.
Now that was actually, I thought that was a good one.
Huh.
I thought that was actually a good, even though it was low budget, that was a good horror movie or supernatural thriller or whatever you want to call it. I thought that was a good one.
I was bored most of the way through. Mind you, I'd done, I'd been in the military for a while. I'd done land navigation and things like that. And so the fact that they, threw away the map just drove me crazy.
Yeah.
And then, of course, at the very end, I was like, no witch? Okay. I give up. This is a dumb movie.
Not as dumb as the sequel. Woo! Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. Yikes!
Oh, really?
Man, you want to talk about bad sequel?
I kind of missed out on Blair Witch. I just didn't get it. I mean,
and,
kids out freestyling with video cameras. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like acting school.
I broke up with a girlfriend over that movie.
You're
She
kidding.
said it was the scariest thing she'd ever watched. I went and watched it, and I went, "Oh, we're done."
But, horror movies are, as I said, in particular with the subgenre of possession movies, horror movies are tricky to get right because they can either come off as cutting edge and truly spooky, or they can be Blair. They can be Book Show's Blair Witch 2.
And most of them turn out to be Book of Shadows. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to I've been using the word writing. I want to change that to storytelling.
I think those.
Yes.
I think those both go hand in hand, Mr. Long.
Yeah. Well, see, I want to change it to storytelling because anybody with a laptop and a spell check call themselves a writer. But can you actually weave a tale? That's the thing. Okay.
Yeah, that's
can
a good
you actually
question.
just think, okay, for thousands of years, okay, they sit around a campfire and they tell these stories, okay? And some old guy in the tribe, and he could weave this mist and, get all the children excited and the grown-ups right there, cheering him on as he tells you how the good guy slays the dragon and saves the damsel that became the queen. And they are the father and mother of our great tribe. Okay. Who does that anymore? Who writes anymore? Okay. It doesn't have to be a story like that. Just, something every day. I don't think writers can do that anymore.
I think you are correct.
They're too wrapped up in politics. They think I want to see me on the screen. No, I want to see somebody I can relate to. He doesn't have to look like me. It doesn't have to be a guy. It could be a woman. But I can relate to this person, what they're going through. And I'm right there. I'll cheer them on when they win. And if I can, when they fall, get back up,
I think most writers these days don't have the life experience.
Right.
I would say that is not entirely inaccurate. I would say that there is some truth to that.
Yeah.
I mean, for heaven's sakes, just speaking from my own personal experience, most of the writing that I've done throughout my life has been academic for school. Doing this fan fiction I'm doing the Star Wars fan fiction I'm doing, it's really a different experience because more often than not, I was writing to pass a class. Although there were some instances where I did enjoy what I was writing about. But this is my first foray into creative fictional writing. And it's not that it's necessarily hard. I mean, you do have to have the talent. But I was reading the latest installment and everything to Madame Ambassador the other day, and she's like, the one thing that you're doing that I really like, I was like, what's that? She's like, you're making me want to hear more. She's like, I want to know where this story is going. And I would say that for any good writer, whether they're writing a book, whether they're writing a short novel, or they're writing a screenplay, that's the key. And the great thing is for this particular movie, for The Exorcist, to kind of get us back on track a little, this was a story that you were invested in.
Yeah.
This was a story that people were legitimately invested in because we didn't know if Father Marin and Father Karras were going to be successful.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was going to happen, not just to them, but to the McNeil family, particularly Reagan and her mother. And of course, we had a little bit of a detective story, which I did like. I did like the fact that there was a little bit of a detective story with the detective Kinnerman, and he's interviewing Father Karras. He goes and speaks with Mrs. McNeil,
Right.
and even I was like, is he going to figure out what's going on? And you never get a real solid resolution, but you get the impression that maybe he did know what was going on.
Yeah.
That's one of the aspects I really liked is I do believe the detective actually knew or at least suspected what was going on. And at the very end, while he was in the house and he looked at the window, he looked at the girl, he looked at the bed, and then he looked at the window again, he looked at the stairs, Yes, he knew. He knew.
But the thing was, he didn't pursue the case, but I think because he figured out there was something wrong with the girl, with Reagan.
Right.
And that's why he didn't pursue charges, because he knew it would have been nothing but just dredging up a nightmare for the family. And he, when he said to Father Dyer, he's like, well, move on, I guess, to the next thing, or something to that effect. But that's what good storytellers do. They bring you along. They're like, come into this story and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And really start to develop that's the great thing about a slow burn. You start to care about the characters. You do. You legitimately care about the characters. And to see Karras in his predicament, to see the McNeils in their predicament, because let's be candid, yes, she's a movie star. She's obviously a very successful movie star. But the problem is she's estranged from her husband. And that is having an effect on Reagan.
Yeah.
So anything along those lines, guys, that you want to break down further?
To add to that, you kind of feel for Reagan, because you see this cute little girl, and she knows there's issues between her mother and her father. She was like hiding in the corner, listening to her mother trying to get her father on the phone.
Right. Yeah.
For the daughter's birthday.
On her birthday, nonetheless.
So she knows there's something's awry in the family there, and it's just a prime ground for that dark force to come in and invade like it did,
Well, and go ahead, CC.
Oh no, I just lit a cigarette.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. Anyway, the really interesting part is there's the one scene, I think it's when they're talking about what they're going to do for Reagan's birthday. And she's like, you can invite Mr. Dennings if you want to.
Right.
And and the mother's like, well, where's this coming from? And she's like, well, I heard. She's like, I like Bert, but he's lonely, doesn't have much to do and everything. And she's like, well, you like him? She's like, well, I like pizza, but I'm not going to marry one. But the mother, Mrs. McNeil, is trying to play it off, and she's playing it off I think she's playing it off pretty well, but you get the impression, I can't remember if this was before the first incident with the noises or after the first incident with the noises in the attic. But you almost get the impression that Reagan, the demon's telling her things. It's not to say things that are untrue, but telling her things that she wouldn't necessarily know otherwise.
Yeah, half truth.
Yeah, because remember what Father Marin says to Damien. The demon will sprinkle truth with lies, or something to that effect. And that sounds somewhat like what was going on there.
And she had been in contact with Captain
Howdy,
Howdy. She'd been in contact with Captain Howdy for months at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she was getting supernatural intelligence or knowledge prior to her full-on possession. Oh, what a scary movie. Holy cow.
What? I'm not following you, Cece.
No, she was in contact with Captain Howdy.
Yeah.
Through the Ouija board.
Uh-huh.
And then also she was getting supernatural knowledge of what was going on in the house.
Oh,
so
okay, I gotcha.
Her mother was most likely sleeping with him, the director. We saw what kind of a guy he was when he was at the party and got drunk.
Man. Nasty drunk. Yeah.
Yeah, he was an unpleasant guy. But then, of course, he died, and I say that with air quotes. He died with his head turned completely around after he fell down the stairs. Fell down the stairs, air quotes again. So we assume that Reagan turned his head around and threw him out the window.
Mm-hmm. Well, but the demon possessed version of Reagan, not Reagan herself, because there's no way in the world that a girl that small would be able to do any of that.
Right, but that had been after her birthday when her dad couldn't get in contact in Italy, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what the best part of this movie is. It takes place over months.
Yeah.
It is absolutely brilliant the way they filmed it.
Mm-hmm.
And Father... doggone it.
Karras.
Go back there. Karras, yeah, his mother, right? So he's taking care of his mother in her home. And then she gets taken to a nursing home. And then she dies. And that takes time. So you're seeing what happens over time with someone who is sick. And that is one of the things I love about this film is they don't rush it. They really don't.
Mm-hmm. I would wholeheartedly... Go ahead, Mr. Lundell, please.
You can't rush it because if you rush it, the only way you can get the tension up is with a bloody knife.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what we've gotten for the last 30 years, you know. But we don't get tension, we get blood.
Yeah. If you notice, is throughout the movie there were little bitty things that they built up to, the bed's jumping in and she's flopping around on the bed. And then there were little bitty things that led up to what happened, when I guess the next big scene was, when she slapped her mother and then this Chippendale is coming at her, and little bitty things, each one of those scenes that we remember that scare us to death in this movie, there were little bitty things that always led up to it. If if you sit and watch it again, you'll see those little things,
Yes.
Little music cues or something the mother says.
Yes.
And, just tiny things that help build attention to what's coming.
And you feel for the family. You really do. While they're going through all the medical treatments, you feel for Chris and you feel for Reagan, right? You're like, oh my God, Reagan is going through so much trouble and her mom is having so much difficulty with it. You feel for them because it has built up to that point.
Yeah, especially...
it started out with Reagan. Oh, I played with a Ouija board and now I'm possessed. Rah!
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Yeah,
which is what
especially when
movies do now, and that's ridiculous. You need to get a feel for the family. You need to understand,
yeah,
the dynamic that's there, and that's what this movie did so brilliantly.
Yes.
see, but I don't think they could. I don't think you could do that the standard like 90-minute time frame movies
No.
run today.
No.
Not today. No, people are not patient enough to wait for the climax.
Yeah,
Well, some of us are. I mean, I would say that the attention span of most moviegoers is not that short. I mean, if you look at some movies that have come out recently, one I just recently went and saw this past week was Tenet, the newest Christopher Nolan film, and that sucker's about 2.5 hours long, and I was like, okay, I'm here, I'm ready to go, let's do this, and I was certainly engaged from the time the movie started till the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Really enjoyed it. Really good film and everything. I think it was one of Nolan's best and everything, although I don't think he's ever really done a bad movie. He may have done some subpar movies, but like an outright just.
Hey, Ambassador, I need to go. I'm talking to my son on the phone right now, so I will see you guys later.
Okay, well, we're probably good. Well, we're probably going to wrap up here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, CC.
It's a conversation I need to have with my son. So
I understand.
I'll see y'all later.
See you, bud.
All righty, man.
All right,
have a good one.
Peace. So I'll go on camera here. Well, honestly, we're coming up on about an hour and a half. I think we've given this movie its due and everything. So I think we can go ahead and start wrapping up anyway. So, Mr. Lundell, if you want to give any final thoughts and do a plug for your channel, and then we'll close out.
Okay, final thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Rent this movie, buy this movie, watch this movie. Okay.
Yes.
Learn, especially if you want to be a writer, director, whatever, Hollywood type.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to do a movie like this. Okay. This is one example, probably it's the best example on how to do it, to create tension.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about, the suspension. No, what is it? Expectation thing. Forget about that. Okay. If the guy's a plucky hero, make him a plucky hero. He doesn't have to die.
Mm-hmm.
Just do not subvert expectations.
That's it. Subverting expectations.
Just with that, stop it. Okay.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
This movie, okay, watch it around Halloween. Watch it tonight. Okay, you're gonna love it if you do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just real quick and everything. You can currently rent this on Amazon Prime if you have Amazon Prime for like $2.99. And I think you've got it for 30 days. So.
Oh, I can watch it again then. Okay.
Mm-hmm. We both got it the same way, Mr. Lundell. We both got it the same way. So.
Yeah. Okay, the channel. Okay, screen name says it all. Groovy Movies. Okay, I'm the guy growing up. Okay, insomnia as a kid. So lucky enough living here in Dallas to have a couple independent channels. They always showed movies, and they would show them all night. So when I had those sleepless nights, I could just sit up and watch an old horror movie, an old Humphrey Bogart movie, okay, whatever, okay, back when I grew up back when you could see all these movies, the classic ones, at just about any time of day or night. So, Casablanca, Maltese Falcon, High Noon, Last Train from Gun Hill, movies like it's the thing. groovy movies.
Yes.
And they're the great ones like the ones I mentioned, and then they're the not so good ones like Mars Needs Women. You know, or,
yes.
the the creature from, I can't pronounce, Piedras Blancas. It's basically a ripoff of the creature from the Black Lagoon. You know, I got movies like this. They're on my channel. You can watch them.
Yes.
You know, I do a premiere every day around 11 Central, and like on Friday nights I do a premiere around 8:30, so I can chat with members of the channel. And if YouTube behaves, I'm going to do some. I've been trying to do some riffs with Mr. CCDV. If YouTube behaves, I'm going to do some more. I'm thinking though I should probably save it for like Halloween and do the riff then. Maybe I can get away with it.
Indeed. And this is not me trying to impose or anything, but anytime you want to have me on, Miss Lundell, you know how to get a hold of me, because I love talking. I love talking the old movies. I'm like, as Detective Kinnerman said, I love to critique film and movies and all that sort of thing. So, and this was a true pleasure having you on, sir. And I look forward to working with you in the future. And we'll hopefully now next week we really. We hit another great classic, and we'll be talking John Carpenter's classics, Halloween and Halloween 2.
Oh, okay.
So, yep. I went
slasher.
We're going from, let's see, last week we did, what did we do last week? I'm trying to remember our substance. We did Night of the Living Dead. And we've done zombies. We've done the devil, and next week we're doing slashers. And then we're wrapping up the month and everything with a Scream watch party. So,
Scream. Okay.
Yes. I know it's not everybody's favorite, but you know what? I look at it this way: it's my channel.
Yeah, you can do anything you want. As long as YouTube stays happy.
Exactly. Yeah, and to everybody, they'll catch us on the replay. If you have not subbed to Mr. I hate when I do that wrong. If you have not subbed to Mr. Lundell's channel, please go do so. I will include a link and everything to his channel in the description down below, and for Mr. CC as well, and for Superior Hero Reviews, even though he was having technical difficulties tonight. Superior, if you are still in the chat, if you hear this, we understand, and there's always next week. And coming up, one final thing before we close. Later this week, actually this Friday night at 7 o'clock Central Time, I'll be back with another installment of the Ambassadorial Wing and everything. And I've got a great panel lined up and everything. And we're going to be talking about two of the great rogues galleries from the comic book universe. One from DC, one from Marvel. And we'll be talking about who would win an all-out battle royale between the rogues gallery of Batman and Spider-Man. And I've got a really good panel put together for that, so be sure to tune in for that. And then it won't be this week. It'll be most definitely next week. I'll be back with part 4 of my Star Wars fan fiction, Ray Who. So be sure to keep your eyes and ears open for that. So. And I want to thank everybody that was in the chat, AFK Bar, Pixelated, Superior Hero. Thank you all very much for being here. And for everybody that was lurking and everything, I hope you all enjoyed the chat. I hope you enjoyed the stream and everything. And this channel, this committee would be nothing without you all. So you all have a great night. Be careful of what goes bump in the night.
Oh, yeah.
And until next time.
Stay away from Captain Howdy.
Stay away from Captain Howdy. And this is the Ambassadors signing off.
I have always been